Вау, тихо. Всем привет, с вами Дикер. Вау, тихо. Тихо тебе, слава Мерлу. Дикер Мерлу. О да, о да. Так, где сказал сейчас? Нет, 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 нет. ВК стал парашным. Или YouTube, я не знаю. Ну то и то стал парашным. Ай, господи, почему вы портитесь, честно? Хотел сохранить это видео. Может, ты пойдешь кое-куда? Без намеков, но просто кое-куда. Например, к черту. Сохрани. Что ты не можешь сохранить? Ссылку эту? Почему ты не можешь сохранить это? Что с тобой? Что? Почему ты не можешь сохранить это? Ну, сука, все, я понял вас. Загрузка. Загрузка. Не должен сохранить это видео. Ты тупой? Чё, сука? Чё, сука? Сейчас нервный срыв будет, чё, честно. Сука? Закрой рот. Сейчас не лагать начинает. Почему он не хочет? Иди ты к черту, все, бесит. Так. Почему он не хочет создавать? Что с ним? Почему он не хочет? Что с ВК? Какого хрена он не хочет? Сейчас это не добавит. Да, не добавляет. Что ты сделал? Чё за идиот на ютуб, ой, на ВК? Да меня и все, хватит, честно. Короче, конченый, вот и все. Оповещение. Спасибо. Будешь работать? Здесь работает, но что с ним? Что происходит? Пустой экран. А, вот. Ну вот типа стрим. Да. Да все. Так, продолжаем. Такой диссонанс, проблем произошла с ВК. Что не хочешь делать? Неадекватный ж. Игра в эфире. Красиво выглядит очень. Дикер в эфире. Зачем закрыл? Опять принесен. Да, спасибо. Как раз сейчас стримов, то что типа иконка, да. На телефоне это вообще прям проблема блюта. Очень выбешивает. То что ты не можешь зайти на канал ну, на канал к автору, ну. Не можешь на канал зайти просто. Так, мы подобрали вторую статуэтку и все. Там вторую статуэтку подобрали и все. По звуку должно быть все нормально. Так, погнали. А, офигеть, лагает. Что лагает так? А что лагает так?
Co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
Что с игрой?
a memo. A good bucket,
Так, да.
a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction. Stanley clutched.
Что с игрой? А, не на видео начал лагать. Так, пошел к черту. Я очень видел опять. Что не так? Почему в этот момент все? За что мне... За что так? Дайте спокойно отдохнуть, мне ничего без каких проблем либо. Без каких-либо проблем. Нафига вот это все? Пошел к черту, Nvidia. Вот нахера вот в этот вечер все прям напало. Еще и зрителей, скорее всего, не будет, я угадал. Вообще нервный стрим будет лютейший. Но я редко стримлю то, что устаю. Я сейчас удалю, честно. Я прям на стриме тебя удалю, Nvidia поганый. Контейнер этот. Ну а чё он жрет-то все тут? Все? Угомонился?
Tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting
Ура!
room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
Place
And
to
here
be.
it was. Had the bucket turned out to be
Напрягай
correct,
теперь
was this...
постоянно.
No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Ну погоди.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yeah, good.
Said the
Я
bucket.
не помню, куда надо было
Now
идти.
ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
In here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley
Я не
once
помню, куда
again
идти надо.
obeyed blindly.
Вообще не помню. Так.
Now pick up the phone.
Сейчас пытаемся вспомнить, чего надо было.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket.
Да.
Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressing.
Это мы знаем. Там ничего интересного. Мы это знаем.
All of his
Но я знаю
coworkers
то, что
were
никто не
gone.
смотрит стримы, как
What
всегда.
could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. The embrace of an old friend. A weathered companionship that stands the test of time. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Че? Так, где может быть еще? Где не... А.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy. It's as clear as day.
Да.
This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be. Given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. Oh no. We're getting into name calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply
Привет, Хэн, приятного просмотра. Дело да вообще, мягко говоря, не очень. Дело да вот игра. Ну, Stanley Parable, еще и дополнение, которое в игре Deluxe. Здравствуйте. Да, спасибо. Даже не до этого настроения. Настроение не до этого, когда даже. Странно. Игра просто про кучу концовок, типа ты действуешь, там всякое такое, куча концовок. Думаю, знаешь. Все? Серьезно? Все. Так. Че внизу? Ух, что за ведро такой бархатный эко-эфтемен? Ну это мой, да. Это мой, не завидуй. Завидуй. Крутое ведро, да. Брутальный. Это что такое вот кофе-то? Ладно. Здесь же вроде... Нет, здесь не... Что сторону делать? Типа концовки новые открывает. Куча новых концовок. Типа ведро очень загадочное, всякое такое. 1-2-B4, да, я знаю. Ничего не означает. Знаешь, что это ничего не обозначает?
That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a
Здесь
source
просто
of
идем.
guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized,
понял.
this isn't my
И мое ведро, это просто обычное
It's
ведро.
just a normal, everyday bucket.
Нет, мое, а
Someone
Дикер, поиграешь
else's
игру
bucket.
Сулиминал Left
How
4
did
Dead
I
2?
end up with someone else's
Left 4
bucket?
Dead нет,
This is all terribly
Суперлиминал
wrong.
может
Surely
быть.
no good would come from
Э!
this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his
Дай.
bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket,
Где мой
I've
ведро?
gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Я знаю, это про иллюзии, я знаю.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were
Одно
his.
ведро.
None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley. Find me.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from.
Откуда?
The real bucket was inside him.
Внутри самого.
It was incredibly painful.
Много
Stanley
ведра.
doubled over in
Много ведра не бывает, понимаешь? Вот это захотели мир. И ведер много не
This
бывает.
is the story of a woman named Mariella.
А,
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed,
взял свое ведро.
a bucket of comfort and security, and walked to
Вот что, кирешка? Да, вообще ужас.
But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man
А сумка
who had
рядом
stumbled
стоит.
through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the
Он
problem
был
was.
без ведра.
This man,
Да. Гениально.
of course, he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is
Так, кирешки нынче дорогие,
free will is
понимаешь?
an illusion, and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place.
Ведро дома.
All the
Ага.
world can be, Mariella
Жестокий
said.
мир, подумал Мариэла.
And she hugged her own
Чё, короче,
bucket
прижала
with
к
great
себе
pleasure.
свое ведро.
But of course, she had
Но
no
у нее,
time
разумеется,
for
не
this.
было времени.
There were a myriad
Да,
of
это уже...
confusing problems she would soon have to
Когда
confront
тут,
at
типа,
once.
теперь
Her
с этим...
bucket would provide
с ведром.
absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck, yes, she thought to herself.
Я знаю, что
My
я не
life
открыл много
kicks
концовку
ass.
еще,
And she
дофигища, еще
actually
первую
did all
часть,
the
но
work
я еще
to
пофиг.
work.
Я хочу открыть основные и типа допройти ее. Ну, типа допройти. Самое интересное основу посмотреть и все. Я знаю, концовки типа с консолей и
All of
всякое
his
такое.
coworkers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the
Я
meeting.
не буду
Perhaps
спойлерить,
he had
какие у нас
simply
есть
missed a
концовочки
memo.
вообще.
The bucket
У
made
нас куча
Stanley want to be a
концовок
better man
было
and a
интересных
better coworker.
из-за этого.
In time, perhaps, he would become both of those things.
Так,
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
я думаю...
This was not the correct way to the meeting room. But
Так,
Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
я хочу
And here it
вспомнить,
was.
где
Had the
я...
bucket turned out to be correct?
Психолог,
Was
там
this
кто-то
a-
такой обращался.
The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door
А,
on his left to go back to the meeting room.
я понял. У нас
No,
было безумие с этим ведром, я помню.
don't go to the meeting
Да нет,
room.
он
Go
только был.
somewhere else. The
Так,
cargo
тебя сюда
lift,
идем.
yes, good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the
Так
lift
я
all the
дадишь,
way to the
Хэнк.
top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why
wow,
or
wow.
how this bucket was speaking to him.
Wow, wow,
It
wow.
should have alarmed him, of course, because
Help.
buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose
А ему
not to
ноги
think
сломать
about
себе?
this obvious
Я мог
fact.
себе ноги сломать.
He was firmly convinced that the bucket had
Ух,
spoken to
ты ж ты
him,
мой.
and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Так, здесь, типа, надо будет к психологу идти, типа, ведро очень плохое, всякое такое.
No, stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says
Каким вкусом у вас
"No
кирешки?
bucket
Даже с любым
past this
вкусом.
point." Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket
А
here?
тут, который
Unless-
премиальный с усами, это уже 150 тысяч, 150 тысяч, понимаешь? Вот так. Даже могу 150 тысяч поставить. Кирешки с кетчупом. Гений, я просто гений. Но, понимаешь, лучше просто кирешки. Кирешки это сами по себе вкусные. Вот это так, что да. Твой любимый, мой любимый, твой любимый, кто мой любимый? Меня нет любимого. Я любимый кирешки есть, но любимого нету. Осуждаю. Любимые кирешки... Мне нравятся, которые... Ну блин, они... Какой шоколад лучше, Крокон или Чиорио? Я не знаю таких...
Run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us
Так, мы
everything
сломаем
you'll
ему
ever need to
мышление.
know about what is
Прошлый раз.
or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin. Item 1. Is this a bucket?
Нет, это мое ведро, правильно?
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket. not an
Голограмма.
actual bucket.
Я же гений, я все знаю. И нет таких...
Item 2. Is this a bucket?
Это ведро? Нет.
Correct. It is a 3D printed recreation
Ну, у меня
of a
да,
bucket,
а там нет.
not an actual bucket.
Даже который на картинке, это даже не ведро, понимаешь? Ну точно ведро, я
Item
знаю.
3. Is this a bucket?
Унитаз? Это макароны.
Correct. This is a bucket.
Это макароны. Сразу понятно. Это сразу макароны, понятно. Какое еще ведро? Какой еще вообще унитаз? Ну,
Item 4. Is this a bucket?
ну, нет, не-не-не.
Correct. This is a tractor and not a bucket.
Пустое
To
сообщение,
be honest,
спасибо.
I just sort of put this one in here as a gimme.
Ты точно
I was
что ему
starting
дал?
to
Я
get
уже начал
concerned
думать, что это
that
даже
even
кажется
this
сам.
might be too much
Я козел Мэ.
Thank you for
Ура,
not
ура.
making me look like an idiot. Okay, next one.
Что ты там скидываешь? Сообщения какие-то непонятные. А, это пустые сообщения мне. Все, я понял. Но это точно ведро.
Is this a bucket?
Да. Да. Да.
Correct. This
Видишь,
is
какой гений. Какая память у меня прям хорошая. У меня память прям хорошая, я не знаю почему.
Item 6. Is this a bucket?
Нет. Это же неправильно.
Trick question. Both. Gotcha.
Какой-то гений хороший. Ну это я знал, да. Но сейчас это самое главное.
Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. Should be around here somewhere. Yes, thank you. There's nothing here.
Да.
Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well that
Ничто.
nothing isn't a
Не могу
bucket.
сломать
Wait,
ему.
when I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying
Утверждаю,
everything
что
is
есть
a
ведро.
bucket, which of course is not
Это совсем не
true,
так.
unless...
И
Is that
ты не
what you
согласен.
think? Answer me straight, Stanley. Are you trying to tell me that you believe everything is a bucket?
Да.
You know what? I'm too confused. to even
Слишком,
sort it
да.
out. I've lost all sense of perspective.
Просто ничего не
What
понимаю.
is a
Что есть
bucket?
ведро,
What
что
isn't
не
a
есть ведро.
bucket? Mere moments ago, I could answer these questions with confidence, and yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know
Факор
what a
поганый.
bucket is? Am I a bucket? Stanley, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with.
А
I'm
чё ты
afraid
сломал
the bucket
кнопки-то?
is threatening to tear
Help.
our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry.
Хелк ФТМ.
I'm
Хелк
going to
ФТМ.
erase all buckets from the game
Не
entirely.
надо.
Okay. Here we
Не
go.
надо. Не надо. Все ударил. Гений.
What
Да я,
happened?
да.
Is everything gone? Why did everything
Кригар, громкость
disappear?
нормальная? Слышно нормально
Was
все?
everything a bucket? Every
Я
single thing in
бакет.
the game was a
Я
bucket.
бакет. Чем бакет, кстати
My
говоря?
God, I
Я
had no
бакет.
idea. How could... Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And
Я
you,
ведро,
Stanley,
всем привет.
you're
Я ведро,
still
всем
here.
привет.
You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're
Я
not
ведро.
buckets. Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it
Huh?
doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what, I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the
Да,
buckets,
да.
okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that.
Буду.
Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go.
Стоп, а где я получал концовку с психологом?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed.
Где я могу получить концовку
Stanley
с...
clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Вниз, походу, надо пуститься.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket
Там было
calling to him,
безумие. Это
telling
вроде
him
там
that
все
the
был конец. Это...
employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to
Или
be
нет?
correct? Was no.
Я сейчас посмотрю. Спасибо за лайк, Игра. Что ты открыл мне, идиот? Реально это закрой рот свой. Как это я... А, это я знаю. Ага, да, все.
Never mind. The bucket was wrong.
Идем сюда теперь.
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the.
Канал Дикер, 4 подписчика, офигеть, я почему только у него мало подписчиков. Тут что за канал такой классный, очень все понятно, очень классно. Реально челик прям горит, очень классно. Я его не включать, звук его. Очень классно стрим у него, если звук не включать. Это очень классно,
I'm
да.
glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley.
Я застрял.
Characters from the first game, like the adventure line and the broom.
Я застрял.
Because that's what fans.
Я застрял.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent. Stanley checked his ego and then proceeded onward. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was
Не
not
пока,
the
что
way to
интересно
the
будет.
meeting room, but Stanley had felt
Это
the
был
bucket
недочет,
calling
получается,
to
их
him,
их
telling
стороны.
him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned
Куст.
for you, Stanley.
Тот
We've
самый.
come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the adventure line and the broom closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel.
Что ж
They
такое?
want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the adventure line? We could make the adventure line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it.
А куда это идет вообще? Тише. А? Что это меня сделает? Ладно.
Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well.
Нет, 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 нет. Я сам
Now this
создал.
is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue? Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Да, я знаю. Это я, да.
It's as classic now as it
Это
was
я,
back
да.
then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up. Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me, it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
Алло, давай, давай.
Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters?
А я могу
If
выбросить.
you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for.
А чё, реально поможет?
Okay, the bucket destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the bucket destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the
Да, я не
fans what they
работаю.
want. Hurry and...
Работать ничего. Ай, понятно. А не работает он. Давай без ведра пойдем.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather.
Так, ладно.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Все?
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Stanley felt lightheaded, butterflies in his stomach, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Ладно.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps
А
we've
теперь
gone
может
off
туда
on the
идти или
wrong
как
foot
это?
here.
Интересно найти.
I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not.
Да пошел за
I
чертом.
realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about
Так.
nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every
Одиночку.
decision by yourself.
Не.
I'm not asking for me, I'm asking
Для
you,
неё?
Stanley. Your chance
Для
to
нее с
redeem
каких пор ведро
yourself,
это она?
to put your work aside,
Так, интересно.
to let her back into your life.
Открыл, кажется, некоторые секреты.
She's been waiting.
Она ждет тебя. Жена моя.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to...
Шаг навстречу, что? Что?
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife?
Хотелось
They'd
бы.
want to commit their life to you. I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Ладно.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Своя клавиатура. Как туда забраться? Специально закрыл, что не...
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands.
Чё?
It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so
Cool.
he began to fantasize
Cool,
about his
типа.
own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his
А, вот
boss,
изменился.
everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought
Жена, помоги, пожалуйста.
excited him terribly. So he went further.
Идите.
He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
Чел, из-за тебя спать хочется.
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Сколько мне ждать? По идее 12 типа надо или как? Символ игра идет. То есть хотите сказать, чтобы я 12 это делал? Ну, типа, чтобы день другой начался. Как это? И до 7 утра, типа, до вот 7.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps.
I must.
Maybe this time he'll see.
I must die. I must die.
And I tried again.
Хорошо.
Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Ой, я нажал реально. А же любую кнопку ты умер, типа? Пример шиза. Я шиза нафиг. Какие звуки в микроволновке будто, я не знаю, что со мной.
I can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing.
Что с ушами?
Oh, won't we all
Что
just
с
laugh
ушами?
and laugh? Stanley cradled the bucket in a gentle embrace, protective yet delicate, assertive yet compassionate. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest
Так,
and
вниз, не
entered the
смысл.
door on his left.
Идем туда. Так, мы здесь
Oh,
были.
Stanley, can you feel it? The coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's
Что внизу
office.
было? Бесконечность картина.
Okay, I'm going back to
Так.
the name of these little Stanley
Четвертое.
figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better
Бери
encapsulates the
всех.
intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen
Так.
go up by one? Let me sit on it.
Давай,
I'm
давай,
sure it
давай,
will
давай,
come to
давай,
me.
давай, давай, давай. Ладно. А? Чё? Фу, падла какая-то. А? Что-то здесь было. Что здесь было? Странно. Это будет работать? Ну? А, автоматически. Надо. Так, здесь нечего делать. Это знаешь, что за место это? А, чё, как это оказалось?
Stepping in.
Угу. Так, го дальше пошли. Так, мы были уже внизу. Trust, 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 trust. Да. А чё? Так. Мгм. Стопэ, а там что было? Чё, окей, нам мало ли? Ну, давайте пошли. Так, мы еще типичную концовку можем посмотреть. Уже я еще не посмотрел, вообще нормально. У нас еще концовка должна быть. И поход не будет, типа с мини-играми, да? Это минус пошел. Типа не будет концовки игры, имею в виду это. Так. Стоп, что делаешь? Сейчас уничтожишь его. А себя? Идиот. А себя? Что? А почему себя он... Они же могли оба. Все? Все.
I
Серьезно.
can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it.
Oh.
Oh, won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing.
Да, а вот это интересно.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ага. Печки должно быть. В офисе у этого челика, да.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Стоп, синя-красная, значит, без этого идти надо будет. Синя-красная это уже, блин.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known that. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Здесь должна быть статуэтка быть. Да.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten
Кто строчит?
all of the
Ой, да господи, иди к черту.
Figler and Marines. Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be...
Я знал, где находится, да.
We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them. And now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can.
Давай болтать. Так, и последнюю статуэтку. Можно
All
найти
his co-workers were gone.
красным
What
синим.
could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
Так,
simply
не берем
missed a
его.
memo.
Без него не сможем пройти.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge
Только
first,
там
just to
неизвестно,
admire it.
какой дороги идти надо.
The lounge was grand,
Мне кажется, там оно без
majestic,
дороги будет работать.
perhaps too, but eager to get back to business,
Сейчас
Stanley
пойдем
took
в
the
обычную
first open
концовку,
door
где
on
я
his
пошел
left.
не по той. То есть по
Stanley
синей,
was so
которая.
bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't
Ну
following
или которую не
his
просил он, я не знаю. Как правильно будет.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are
Да.
you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to
Да.
you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. And there it is. The last
Так, последнее.
Stiggly Wiggly. Savor this moment, Stanley. This is a real accomplishment. This is doing something just
Слышно был
for the
микрофон,
sake
кстати говоря.
of doing it. Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So, instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here, and now we can go to whatever the hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines. Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
Да, там все равно это
Thank
будет.
God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this
Нет.
time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running, just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley? I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped. And I think I have a solution. Here, let me show you. What do we want? What are we looking
Ой,
for?
там ну не. Мы здесь были. Так, теперь куда идти? Игра зависла. Чуть было.
Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to put a pause on things.
Uh.
It's those figurines, those figglers. I
Big
haven't
stick.
stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life?
Нет.
Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness?
Нет.
Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines. Just one more time. Here's where it all began. The first collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain? We were so innocent. We'll never be like that again, Stanley.
7. Что это? Что за странное место?
And here
Так.
was a second Stanlerine. You found this one all on your own, just by poking around in the warehouse. You did that, Stanley. I'll be honest. Back then, I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me in all sorts of mundane, unremarkable ways.
Что? Ага, все.
Okay, let's do a little quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini stand? Can you remember?
Да, помню там. Если я помню, там предпоследнее было оно.
Hey, that's exactly right. It was here, under the stairs. It was the third one. You picked it up, and then after that, you had 3 of them. I'm glad these moments are so crystal clear in your memory, but I shouldn't be surprised. After all, science tells us that it's impossible to forget your third time doing anything.
Не знаю, не знаю.
Let's see.
Чё на всякое
What came
говорят?
next? Oh yes, we found a figley in this pink room. Oh, well, I can't actually say I remember being in this room, but it's here in the memory zone, so it must have happened.
Не, чё несут бред, честно, ребят? Его расскажут. Ай, лагает. Зачем? А, статуэтка здесь была.
This was the fifth mini stand, and this one was really something special. It was behind the boss's office. I remember it so clearly. In fact, because this one is particularly special to me, I made a little video to commemorate the occasion.
Зачем?
Enjoy.
Так. Наратор. Что было здесь, или чё он? Ты меня Стэн номер 5. Игра нет, это не 5 была, это 6. Или нет?
Takes you back, doesn't it? I spent a lot of time making that video, but it was 8 minutes I wouldn't have spent on anything else.
8 минутах. Так. Это не 5 была, там 6. Стоп. Не, 5, да, была 5. Ой, я глуплю что-то. 6 вот здесь, да.
And then, Stanley, then we came to the last collectible, the final figurine, right here by the red and blue.
12-6.
This memory is the most distinct and clear in my mind, perhaps because it was the one that happened more recently than all the others. Who can truly say how the mind works? All I know is that this is the moment where you picked up a Figly and I thought to myself, yes, that's all of them. They're all collected. It was a moment unlike any other.
Я уже забыл.
Except for the other moments picking up figurines, which it was exactly
А
like.
чё?
And then there was no more. Because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
Нет. Что-то грудится прям жестко.
No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here, keep enjoying these figurines? Let's just go backwards. We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
Да-да-да. О, да.
Okay, yes, the room with the red and blue doors. I remember this.
13.
I must say, of all the figurines we looked at in our initial tour of the memory zone, this one is the most distinct and clear in my mind. Let's keep going, I want more. And here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we
Нет.
watched?
Нет. Господи.
Yes, I love that video. Still don't remember the pink room, Stanley. Still no memory of this one. Good room, though. A solid room.
А, здесь все, я думал, какой-то проход еще есть. У чего, что, 17 статуэток, что ли? Ну, несколько проходов,
These really
думал.
were a treat to hunt down. You know, if there had been any kind of reward for finding all of these, it really would have muted the intrinsic joy of collecting them. I'm very glad we resisted the temptation. Next one.
Так, а, вот. Или чё? А, здесь ничего нет. Ладно. Сердце что-то нет. Что это было? Погрузка была.
This was our second Figly. Don't you
Да.
remember? Yes, I remember it too.
Забыл, конечно,
The
братик, не
past is
волнуйся.
truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever choose to leave it? Keep going.
А здесь? Здесь была статуэтка. Чел, здесь была статуэтка.
This is it, the very first one we found in the exhibit where I introduced you to the figurines. Oh, I want more memories, Stanley. I want to keep going. What else is there? What came before this?
Ладно. Здесь можно биться, но я не буду. Не буду. Собери их всех. Так, право. Спасибо. Спасибо.
Look, it's the terrible new content that we were originally sold on.
Ой, прыжки эти шикарные, обожаю их.
But time does put a rosy filter on everything. In fact, I dare say I'm actually quite fond of it now. Look how much fun the past is. I want more. Oh, yes, the two doors. Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one.
О, опять этот подсчет. Можно вернуться?
And before everything else, there was your office. Is there anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember.
Опять долго загрузка будет.
Yes, I'm remembering something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was
Серьезно?
different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision with
То есть мы играем за
profound
Стэн,
thoughtfulness.
этого
And then
рабочика.
somewhere along the way, I stopped making decisions. I became lazy, and I came up with a character named Stanley to do my thinking for me. He would make the decisions. He would decide which way to go. I would cheer him on as he collected figurines for no reason. Why did I invent Stanley? Was I lonely? Yes, perhaps that's it. Perhaps I
Шизофрения,
needed to
похоже.
imagine I had
В какой-то
companionship.
степени.
And Stanley really did make for a wonderful companion, even if he was a fiction. But I suppose it's grown old. I want to think for myself again. I want to go back to how it used to be. Yes, I can be on my own again. I can do it. I'll be stronger this time. I'll take care of myself. I don't need Stanley anymore. Oh, but he truly was so much fun to play with. You know what? Since we're in the memory zone, how about one more good memory? Let's go back just once and give Stanley one more run of the office, and then I'll retire him for good. I didn't enjoy telling his story so very much. Okay, here we go.
Не отпусть нас.
Is the story of a man named Stanley.
Сказал бы еще последнее. Опять передумает.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a... Stanley's bucket. The only co-worker he would ever...
Мне интересно, что там в кабинете.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Картина другая? Нет.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now
А где эти
more than
штуки?
ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck.
Что-то из игры, наверное, угадал случайно. До этого удалось 5-4, а я не удалось 4-5.
Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Ой, ладно. А, мог нажать еще раз. Ладно.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Wait, Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again. The bucket said nothing.
Да я ответила.
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button. He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over and over and over. Wow, he said. The number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such
Только это
connection.
проклятие вроде нет, даже наоборот. Я
How
не
was
знаю
this
обычно
not as
число.
exciting to the
Скорее всего.
bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3, he got back in the elevator.
Ладно. Не.
Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much joy Stanley got from slamming the number 3 repeatedly.
Так. Что еще можно сделать? Сделать тут.
No, said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me.
Genial.
You and I have been through so much together, and I just want you to see what I see. Feel the happiness I
Genial.
feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing. Here we go, said Stanley. This time I'll really show you. He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his dreams and hopes and fears. And the whole time, he looked to his bucket for a reaction of some kind. Anything to let him know that the bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence. Crushed by a wave of dejection, Stanley returned to the elevator. Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of Stanley's?
Предатель,
The
походу.
question caused Stanley to ruminate
Если придет.
the
Без
whole
зрителя
way
нет.
down the elevator. He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Так. Без ничего просто уже. Ни с чем уже просто.
Said Stanley. I know what to do. I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart.
Что это было там?
Decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3
Что это такое?
over and over. He would elaborate fully on what the number 3 meant to him and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. it would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley.
Светлое стало как-то.
And it would be through the public eye that the bucket would finally understand
Ah.
Stanley's work. For
Так.
months, he advertised and marketed his press conference, building excitement around it, developing and rehearsing it, until it couldn't be refined a single measure further. When the big day arrived, Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life. This was it. One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
Storyteller. Слушай, это же мясной рынок какой-то есть. Что съездить? Что съездить? Да. Деньги дайте.
There was no one here. Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak, to listen to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and
Вообще
over.
ужас.
He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure. And in that moment, Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly, over many years, the
Ужасная
two of
история.
them grew more and more distant. They spoke less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit, only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Все? Так.
Is Stanley without the bucket? Really? Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the.
Может некуда идти, то что. То все исследовал. Можно вообще направо пойти и пойти туда?
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more
Что там
than
может
ever.
быть?
Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Еще смотреть, что обычно там будет.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the... But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him?
Куда я оказался?
This is certainly the most
А, я
logical
думал, не сюда ушел. Так, пошли.
Stanley and the bucket walked
Ё-моё.
straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Давайте. Тронитесь, ничего интересного. Вроде бы.
The light
Если я хочу
rose
прыгать.
on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Ладно.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the
вот,
office was
кстати.
being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
А я могу типа здесь прыгнуть? Да, здесь могу спрыгнуть. Специально так сделано. Фигню ты не сделаешь.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Обычная концовка, что-нибудь тут смотри.
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away.
No.
Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and... What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket. No, no, no. Stanley can't leave this place, not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Че?
Stanley knew the office layout like the back of his hand. It was only a matter of time before he found the others, wherever they were.
А, понятно. И чё за грусть такой? Запилок. Пилок. Кто это? Много лет спустя. Что это такое? Ну вот год там далеко, а не далеко, ладно. Фрешинган. О, луна. М. Типа как все случилось? Что? Чего? Офигеть. Серьезно? Продолжение этого. Вот это интересно. Это реально интересно. А. И что, мы тему возродить хотим? Это можно сделать через эти. Вот такие штуки убрать можно в настройках, ну, типа вот. В настройках, а в файлах игры можно там изменить значение. Так, если что говорю, что можно так сделать. Делать не буду, потому что мне это лень. Всегда одинаковое. Да, 6 у меня всего. Скорее всего, не все. Твою ж. Я не хотел. О, офигеть, привет! Рад вас видеть. Офигеть, то есть я сложил все это и получилась концовка, но как грустно знать, что больше не будет игр по Stanley Parable. Считаешь, что сказали разработчики, сохранить целостность франшизы? Какая чушь. Stanley Parable не священная корова, ее не надо беречь. Черт целостность, давайте делать игры по Stanley Parable, пока и солнце не взорвется. Давай франшизу могила, а потом воскресим. Что люди подумают, разве это важно? Это главная проблема рассказчика, им было так важно, что подумают о его творениях. Повторяйте его ошибку, не цепляйтесь за старое, пусть все сгорит. Это не сложно, давайте я покажу. Мы сделаем Stanley Parable 3. Вопрос, нужно только понять номер на заставке. Какой-нибудь тупой подзаголовок громкий, безвкусный. Пробуйте сделать из этого набора классное название для нашей игры. Там, где живет младенец. Там, где живет младенец, полная чепуха, и это круто. Каждый запуском игры мы будем повышать номер цикла на 1 и добавлять новый заголовок. Stanley Parable не закончится. А в игре при этом вообще ничего не изменится. Над новым материалом надо работать, кому это нужно. Материалы будут все те же, снова и снова, просто с новой заставкой. Скажите, какой такой план. Мне нравится, но и ваш. Честно говоря, самого сиквела с каждым запуском. А знаете, раз уж вы поверили в мою идею, я хочу его с кончом поощрить. И рассказчик так и не придумал, как выдать вам сломанное достижение, так? Конечно, за месяц он не справился. Меня это тяготит, но мы это исправим. Вот, пожалуйста, тогда машина с достижением работает. Видите, мы на одной стороне, мы команда, мы капитаны корабля. Stanley Parable не закончится, оно будет вечно идти по спирали, а я затем прослежу. Готов, вы уверены? Отлично, у нас есть всего одно дело. Куча времени. Берите позвонок, пока компьютер не будет виден. Хорошие игры Stanley Parable. Чего пил гибу теперь? Много лет спустя. Опять то же самое. Закрылась над паузы. Так, а что если перепустить? Игра зависла. Да она всегда зависает мне. Так. Ну и смотри, там мне интересно. Смотри, там мне интересно. Понимаю. Так, что теперь у меня будет? 4-я часть уже. Проклятый привет. Что это? Какая страшилка.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
То же самое. И все. Я все понял. Я хотел стрим заканчивать, но я понял. Достижение получать. Мне пиратка, но все равно. Ничего не изменится, думаю.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable
Da, da,
and
da.
about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further.
Да, да, да.
Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Так.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up.
Четвертая часть там уже пошла. Да о чем? Какая вторая часть еще? Четвертая часть пошла.
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Ведро нам не надо. Надо. Вот, да.
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will... As you can see, the machine is not working yet since... What? Wait, what in the holy hell is going on? You got the achievement? Why did the machine work? Stanley, I didn't fix it. I didn't do anything to it. I swear, it was broken just a second ago. Who fixed it? Is someone here? Are we being watched? Oh, God. Composure, composure. Yes, as you can see, the machine is working as normal, as I intended. It truly speaks to the awe-inspiring magic of the Stanley Parable 2. Breathe. Just breathe.
Чё? Чё? Это все? Серьезно? Что смысл? Это все, значит,
What
интересно.
else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Кем мы сделали, чтобы она заработала? Статуэтки. Что с ними будет? А. А что с ведром будет?
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic step. A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I'm happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket.
Его тоже не будет там.
Anytime you're holding the bucket,
ну
a sense
есть он.
of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution.
Да хватит курить.
Come on, give it a try.
Что за комната?
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, Can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a...
Короче, понятно. А, проклятый привет, это я поставил. Так. Все. Всем спасибо за просмотр. Некоторым людям. Ладно. Просмотр. С вами был Дикер. Подписывайтесь на канал, подписывайтесь в группу ВКонтакте. С вами был Дикер. Все, я... Настроения нету. Ничего не доходит настроение, у меня настроение максимально плохое. Так, проблем дофигища. Ладно, это пофиг. Всем пока, всем удачи.